love the show, but I think what really made it for me was the relationship between you and Cross, Aldis. I mean, I loved your little asides to each other, and it felt like a true, like, long-running friendship. How did you guys like literally bring that to every scene in that you guys did together? Did you guys know each other prior to filming? Because it seems so effortless.
No, we had never met before. Of course, I was aware of Aldis's work, but I never met him before we did our chemistry test. And it was, honestly, it was. I We both said this, that we just had a mutual respect for each other, and so that's how we went into the job. And then we never talked about how we were going to portray these characters. As it kind of went along, you get more comfortable, and opportunities arise where you could throw something in. And some of the little asides that you hear us say are just things that we may have been talking about 5 minutes before we were shooting, and we decided to just throw it in and see what happens. But a lot of it is the brilliant writing of Ben Watkins and his staff. They really understood that these two characters are brothers, and they need to talk to each other and act like brothers, so that you can really get a sense of that bond that they have.
I'm an actor too, and there's always that one scene when you're like, you first get the part and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do this. But as the scene comes closer, you're like, do I really got to do this? What was that one scene for you where you had it like bookmarked in your script and you're like, okay, it's getting there. The day's coming. The day's coming.
I think honestly, for me, there, we don't get the scripts until like a week before or whatever. But there's I don't want to give away too much, but there's a scene where I have to get fairly close to someone, and I'd never done a scene like that before. So for me, it was just something that I wanted to make sure that I was very respectful in doing that scene. So yeah, it was just something that I was like, all right, let me just make sure that I do this the right way.
I'm curious, what kind of preparation did you have to do in preparing for your role as John Sampson, both in terms of maybe physical training and or police forensic hangout in the forensics psychology department? What kind of preparation?
I usually stay in shape. I do my best to stay in shape. So the physical part wasn't all that difficult. And I had played a detective before, but he wasn't grounded in reality. He was a werewolf detective, so there wasn't much detecting. It was more werewolfing. So this time I really had to kind of get into the mind of the detective, and the best way that you do that is to talk to real detectives. And we had the benefit of going to Washington, D.C. Prior to shooting, to kind of hang out with the MPD, Metropolitan Police, and hang out in their detective division and get to know these detectives. I mean, we talked to, at least a dozen detectives, and really got to know what it was like to live inside, and to walk in their shoes. And we talked to a psychologist, a forensic psychologist, who, just like Alex, knew like the inner workings of a detective's mind, what they go home with, like the problems that when they can't leave the job at the job, and they take it home with them. We talked to them. We had very personal conversations with this one detective who really, shared with us some really personal things that gave us such an insight into what it's like to be a detective on the job and to experience tragedy, that it just had such an impact on us that it made the job so much easier when we are on set talking about these things, in this fantasy world.
The previous Alex Cross incarnations on film with Morgan Freeman and Tyler Perry, they're 90 minutes in length, 2 hours in length. They're thrillers, so the story's more leaning into that thriller element, and it's kind of leaving some of the character moments behind. Now that we have this series that's 8 hours long, there's time to flesh out these character moments with Alex Cross and his family and and in your case his partner, and it also gets to deal with real world hot topics like the Black Lives Matter and the police relationship with the minority community. I'm interested to get your take on that. How important do you think that is, that we get to flesh the characters out and these moments out over 8 hours?
as you were saying that, I just thought of something that it kind of, this may be a good analogy, may not. We'll find out. I think that the other adaptations, those 90-minute long adaptations, they, you get on board the plane and you take the ride, you get there, boom, you get there fast. You get there and, point A to B. I think with our show, it's more like, it's like taking the train. You get on, you get to see everything in detail. You can get off the train and you can explore different areas, get back on the train and keep going. I think that our show is like that. I think that you get to see this universe of Alex Cross from 30,000 feet, but also you get a 360-degree view of this world. And it doesn't shy away from anything. All those things that you mentioned, like police brutality in the community, what it's like to be an African-American detective in the community. All those things are put on display for a reason, so that we can show you exactly what these characters go through in those hard, those dark areas, those hard areas, those tough to talk about areas. We attack that and we just say, this is what it is.
Isaiah, this is such an action-packed series, and you guys are at heightened emotions constantly. There's adrenaline running. How do you all shake off a long day of being on set?
I drink boba tea, but that's that's my vice. I actually order it to set sometimes. No, honestly, all of us have we're it's a fun set. Nobody's down, even though the subject matter might be a little horrifying or graphic at times. We try to make sure that that there's some levity, that we're laughing. Somebody's always doing something on set that's funny. Whether it be somebody on the cast, somebody on the crew, everybody's trying to keep everybody's spirits up. So that's we had such a fun crew in Toronto. Honestly, down to a person, they were so fun and great to be around. Our camera guys, just thinking about some of the things they would say to us. We're checking on sports scores. We're it's just that camaraderie that you want in your workplace.
Was there something about Cross or the action and adventure that continued to draw you to maybe this particular role?
I think I'm just getting lucky. I think I'm because what I'm drawn to is just the story. But in this case, I had a great storyteller, Ben Watkins, and then I also have Aldis Hodge, who, his body of work, how good he is. So I was just blessed with being able to have those two things in front of me. So I really tried to put my best foot forward and just get this job, and it worked out.
Even though Alex kind of doesn't have the best reputation at this point in time, John also at least alludes to being a bit of a bad boy in the past, that when they'll knock into somewhere, it'll be like, oh, but you don't want me to go too far. Yeah, there's rules and regulations, but you don't want to push me. How do you think he was in the past when he was younger? And do you think Alex might have had to restrain him in the past and they kind of switch roles?
I think that they both experienced both sides of those personalities. They both had their moments where they blown up. They both had their moments where one had to pacify the other one, and had to talk the other one, off a cliff or off the ledge, whatever it is. I just think they're two friends that have experienced pretty much everything together, so they know how to interact with each other. As far as John being a bad boy, I think there's a little bit of a bad boy in John, but he knows his limits. And when he's about to reach that point, he definitely gives you a verbal warning. He lets you know that this is a line you don't want to cross. If you cross this line, I'm gonna go there with you. He says it a couple times in this show. But yeah, there's definitely a little edge to him. But he like you said, he tries to keep. He's like Bruce Banner. He's like, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
John also got to see the death of Alex's wife. How do you think that affected him? We see how it affects Alex, but we don't really explore how that affects John. How do you think that affected him?
I think grief in general, when when you witness somebody going through something, you don't know how to approach it in the moment. But thankfully, John knows Cross. He also knows Nana Mama. He can talk to her. He is of that family. He's in that close knit group, that closed circle. So I think that it affected him. I definitely think it still affects him. There are more secrets to learn about that, about her death as we go on. And I think you'll be, these things you'll be introduced to these secrets. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, he definitely was affected by it, but he was affected by it in such a way that he wanted to be there for his friend. He wanted to know how to be there for his friend.
Cross, as the series goes on, becomes more and more reckless dealing with the losses of his wife, and John becomes more and more forceful, trying to help and intervene and save Alex from himself. Do you think John is taking the right approach with trying to help his friend?
Yes, I definitely think John knows his friend and knows how to get the best out of his friend. They've had a relationship and a friendship for 30 years. They've known each other. They know each other front to back, inside out. They just know each other. So whatever John is doing, he knows that is what's going to get the best reaction. And as things start to spiral out, he has to come up with different ways to bring Cross back, center. And have you guys have seen all 8 episodes? Okay, so then how it all culminates. I can't give away any spoilers, but you know what happens somewhere around episode 6, the conversation they have, and kind of where that takes us.